It's Ethereum Sunday, and Ethereum having a few major setups, actually both on the higher term timeframes and on the lower term timeframes, giving it a high probabilistic, I would say relatively high probabilistic setup coming up for the next few weeks here. Anyways, other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Air Crown Crypto channel. It's a lovely Sunday morning over here. Not a macro Sunday morning because very little's changed, so I don't really have too much to update right there. But as we do get into it, I want to once again let you know that you can still get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions in the link in the description below. And without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. So first things first, I'll start off with the higher term timeframes right on over here. This is the weekly look on Ethereum, of course, and there is something very glaringly obvious that is right in front of our very faces, and that is the interaction between the yellow 21 exponential moving average and the green 55 exponential moving average. In this case, they're going to have a chance to cross the upside perhaps as soon as tonight, actually, as weekly is going to be closing in 18 hours, 17 minutes, and 50 seconds from exactly now. It will cross to the upside, assuming that Ethereum today closes above 1975. That would force the cross. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily need to close exactly above that number today for it to happen just in general. That would just be for on this next tick. And you can see that they are extremely close to each other right now, basically kissing. They got their tongue in the mouth, and well, I'm happy for them. It's true love. So perhaps not this week, as 1975, about $50 away from Ethereum on, well, at least of current, but coming into next week, those things are going to draw even closer. So that number will probably come down, I would think, significantly, actually. So we'll be able to update on that perhaps tomorrow if we do talk about Ethereum. Of course, that would also imply that this cross is inevitable, assuming that Ethereum just stays above the green 55, which is at 1800 or basically 1803. So in this case, maybe not this week, perhaps next week or the week after that. Very, 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 very likely. We really don't have too many iterations of this cross on Ethereum because it is a little bit on the younger side. It's just a young tyke. And in this case, there's actually only one prior iteration. In fact, coming off of the 2020 Dumple cross into the upside in June 2020 before Ethereum went on a pretty mega rally. Of course, you could kind of look at this one over here from 2016 as relevant, but I wouldn't necessarily say so. But in the context of, more younger assets, let's say, you would expect these higher term timeframe crosses to generally work out a little bit better, kind of similar to Bitcoin when it was quite young as well. Blindly playing these crosses was kind of insane, actually. I was talking about this one from $5 over here all the way up to, 1100. And then yet again, coming off of 2015, going all the way from about $400 to 20,000. And again, even in the failure, or what I would consider a failure over here, going from about 8,000 or 9,000 to 14,000. And then kind of that same move that we did see coming off of the June/May lows in 2020 before the all-time highs in November of 2021. So going back to Ethereum, let me just plop it back in there. And again, that would generally be looked at as a long-term good thing. Doesn't mean that Ethereum can't pull back, but it would set in the condition that, hey, again, as long as Ethereum is especially above all major moving averages here, but even that yellow and green the yellow 21 and the green 55 at 1800 or so, pressure remains to the upside coming out of this current consolidation. Now, if price action does start to come back down and crack below that level and close below that level, at that point, very likely looking at much deeper retracements, probably at least towards 1500, maybe even 1300. But as of right now, just not super relevant to the conversation. If that starts to happen, though, then we start to talk about major downside targets because that, is going to very likely proceed multi-digit moves to the downside. Anyways, putting on our indicators over here, I did want to also call out that this volatility read coming off of the lows from May has been some of the lowest volatility reads ever on the weekly for Ethereum. It's really only been comparable to a couple other times in history, that being November 2021. So that was at the all-time high, of course. And then before that was October 20, which was before, this humongous run over here, of course. So again, volatility is direction neutral, but to get a bias on direction, we can look at our other momentum oscillators. In this case, weekly RSI showing some hidden bullish divergence. I mean, technically speaking, that did happen on this low over here, but I'd say that one's still very much active. And the weekly Jewel, which I would really like to see this one for the Boo laws, if they are going to pull through, confirm today with that light blue cyan color supported by DMI. If that happens and then you get the silver cross, very likely we do see this one have a nice move to the upside, in the following weeks, maybe months. Looking at our drawing tools right here, very obvious supply zone. That got tapped. It got tapped. We had some tapping action going on in April of this year, and before that, May of last year. But basically at around the 2100 level or so, or 2150. I would be looking at that as sort of like the next major barrier, if you will. If Ethereum can start to close above there, that's at the point where I'd really be looking for Ethereum to put in, major rallies towards 2600, maybe even 2800 if things get really, really crazy. So that's kind of what's at stake right now. Again, balancing point at 1800. Below there, big fucking problems. As long as above there, Boulaws have the balls in their court. And we can move on to the next chart, which is a setup on the 2-hour time frame, actually. So in this case, very similar to yesterday's setup, except in this case, it's for Ethereum. This one's on the 2-hour time frame, and basically it is this. If you're not familiar with the HPDR indicator, closing below these blue range lows right here, which happened on Friday, actually, on that Dumpola party, combined with a decrease in volatility, which we do see right here simultaneously, I should also add, has led to a nice setup that, if we were to throw in our strategy backtester, has closed 251 trades over the past 3 years, and about 62.5% of that did have, there was a 62.5% probability of some nice upside moves in this case. And again, this is a 2-hour time frame. It's not anything like super crazy, but does provide a bit of a statistical imbalance there in favor of the upside. So looking at our performance summary, we do see a few things of interest. One, the average winning trade was about 5.5%, kind of similar to Bitcoin setup yesterday. And then also the average amount of bars in the winning trades was 24. 24 divided by 2 is 12. And so that means that would give us what? my brain just broke. Sorry. 24 times 2 is 48, which would say about 2 days from that particular setup happening, is kind of what you do expect on the, for as long as the winning trades to play out. And of course, there's variance within that, as always. By contrast, the average amount of bars in the losing trades was 35, so that would be 70 hours, so closer to 3 days. So the longer that this one does trade sideways here without having that nice explosive move to the upside, the more and more naturally it will more likely be bearish. Confirmed with a closure below 1860. That would be essentially the failure condition on this. So in that case, if we were to still see this one emerge to the upside, which it actually is very close to 2 days from that setup given now, but if it were to emerge to the upside and goes for the average, then that would essentially put Ethereum back around the highs that we did see on Thursday/Friday. Again, I do want to call out that this script right here, this strategy tester right here, very similar to, it's kind of like a more streamlined version of what we do offer over here on the Crown Trading application, with the, what do we call it? What did I call it? The Crown Quant automation, basically giving you a streamlined way to kind of put this in. Now you don't get this exact script that I'm using right here, because this one's like extremely dialed in for this particular strategy. But you can put it together through that tool, backtest whatever settings you want. Something similar to this, although not exactly like this, I should add. But yeah, that's available for you, because I know I'm going to get a shit ton of questions about this on fucking email, and it's just much easier to get out on a video instead of having our poor customer service girls type out, hey, blah, 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 blah. Who knows what the fuck they say. I don't watch them. Anyways, yeah, so that's that is that. Moving on into just a general HPDR analysis, 4-hour time frame showing the average of the current range at about 1955, low side of the current range at 1880, and top side of the current range at 2024. So again, short term, it kind of does look like it wants to come back down and test around that region. I would look at Ethereum as more so in a position of power if it does start to close back above the average of the range at 1955. Probably increases the probability that increases the probability that the 2-hour time frame probably does play out to the upside. But that would be like an early warning signal that, hey, game on, most likely. But until then, do be aware of where the failure conditions for that is, because if it does happen, then it probably probably comes down more. Probably comes down more. Probably is like a 5% move to the downside. I'm actually curious what that would look like. What does 5% to the downside look like? Yeah, that'll put Ethereum back down towards 1800, which would be very concerning because that's where the weekly 55 is. So again, I do still think that like current price action is a bit of a coin toss as to whether Bulas or Bears take hold of it. Well, I guess, there's a slightly higher probability to the upside, but nothing like super crazy in my opinion. Anyways, going over here into stochastic momentum, another thing of interest is that the weekly stochastic also will actually twist back onto the upside, assuming that Ethereum does close today for the weekly above 1906, currently trading about $20 above that pivot. We do see this trendline regression coming in from the last few lows, coming in from June of last year and then December of last year as well, like the current all-time low basically, or not all-time low, but current cycle low of Ethereum. So does it spend a little bit more time kind of going sideways around this region, testing that regression and then twisting to the upside? Perhaps yes, but ultimately, above 1900, good for the Bulas here. 5-day time frame, also vertical above 1786. What I'm trying to say. 2-day time frame is actually headed to the downside below 1966. So that would not be great for the Bulas. Daily is going to be headed up above 1905. That number continues to pop up here and there. 12-hour time frame going to be twisting down below 2000. Man, we are just not getting an agreement between anything right now. 6-hour time frame downside angled below 1950. 4-hour time frame is going to be also downside angled below 1956, and I would say heavily downside angled there as well. And hourly is going to be up above 1923. Not really getting too much agreement there. What does it likely amount to? Probably another test of the downside, actually. The question is, does the downside range break? If it does, big problems for the Bulas there, and great successes for the Bears, and shish kebabs on the other side. But I don't really trust those sort of oscillators too much over the weekend. Does it equate towards another test to the downside? I would say probably yes. But doesn't imply a breakage of the downside. Need to see a full hour below about 1880 in that case, and even then, I'd still really look at this one as the big one, 1860. Even on a 2-hour time frame, that's where things start to fall apart. Similar to Bitcoin below like 29,500 or so. Until then, could be something like this where we see it come back down and then bounce back up, or it could just go down like that, or it could go sideways as well. But again, that's why we look at the probabilities. That's why we look at the averages of time in trade and of returns, because it gives us a bit of an idea of kind of what to expect. And when those expectations start to fall by the wayside, that's when it's time to consider other options. So I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. Hopefully that was in some way helpful. We'll be back on tomorrow, hopefully with something new to talk about Bitcoin. It's almost 4 weeks now, this damn range. I'm losing my fucking hair. But that's okay, because I'll just get another hair transplant. Absolutely sucks. All right. Take care. Much love, and see you hopefully Monday.